Welcome to episode 73 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of January 11th, 2024. My name's Logan Plant, and I'm joined, as always, by Justin Corais. Hi, Justin. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What's up, Logan?
How was your holiday break? How did it go?
I was sick with COVID the entire time and was fairly miserable, actually.
I'm sorry to hear it. That is too bad. Unfortunately, Chris Driver's out right now with the same thing, so that's why he's not here this week. A two-man show to kick off 2024, but he'll be back. He'll be back next week, I'm sure, to talk Nintendo with us again. It's a big show to kick off 2024. We're back on YouTube after much fan demand. You can find us, just search for Toadstool Boardroom on YouTube, and you can find a video version. Big thanks to Justin for helming the production of going back to the video version of the podcast.
It is, in fact, literally what I do, so I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, so if you were missing that, if you liked watching us on YouTube, you like seeing our faces as we're talking Nintendo, go check that out. Just search for our show on YouTube, and you should find us there. And, of course, we'll still be on all your audio services that you enjoy to use. Well, it's 2024, and that means it's time for the big Nintendo 2024 predictions show. Justin and I each have 5 predictions about what Nintendo will do this year. It can be about a Switch successor, it can be about software, it can be about their entertainment ventures. Really, whatever you want, you can pick for these 5 predictions. And Justin, I've been working on these predictions for about 6 months, so I'm ready to go. How about you?
I've been working on them for about today, but I'm also ready to go.
Yeah, I couldn't work on predictions 6 months ahead. How could I? But I've got 5 good ones, though, so let's start with round 1. Justin, what's your first prediction?
I'm going to say a lot of these are going to be layups. I think this is the year that we hear the announcement of the Donkey Kong movie.
Okay.
I think it's they have the look, they have the cast, they have the studio to use behind it. It's a recognizable brand. Clearly, their ventures into movies have been extremely successful with the Super Mario Brothers movie, and this is a really easy way to expand the franchise without it having to be the next Mario Brothers movie necessarily. It's very easy, soft landing into something that, because of its attachment to it, I think they can reasonably expect to be fairly successful, but a pretty light lift because of what they've already have in place. Seth Rogen was, I think, perfect as DK. I think that he's perfect to helm his own vehicle behind it. They've already established a certain lore of the Kong Kingdom. Like I said, they've already got models built for a lot of these things. There's so much personality in that section of the movie. I think that this is an easy one, and I have to believe that they were probably at least pre-planning this, or at least had this in mind when they spent as much time with the Kongs as they did in the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Actually, it's also one of my 5, so I'll just say my piece on it now. I think it's the year. Yeah, Mario Movie 2 is going to happen, but I think Donkey Kong Movie first makes sense. And I think that, yeah, we've got that theme park opening in Japan in March, and it just makes too much sense not to happen at some point. And I also think I'll go along with that. We're going to get a Donkey Kong game also. I had paired as part of this one prediction.
Excellent.
I think that the Switch, I don't know if it'll be on Switch successor or original Switch or maybe cross-gen, because I didn't make this as one of my 5 predictions, but I do think we're going to see Switch games for a long time. The Switch cadence is not just going to stop the day that the Switch successor comes out. So I could see a cross-gen Donkey Kong game. I am hoping for a 3D platformer, but I could see someone just take another crack at a Donkey Kong Country game. But we're well overdue for Donkey Kong to get a fresh game. It's been 10 years next month since Tropical Freeze originally came out on Wii U. So I think it's time. I think that Nintendo's going to take Donkey Kong seriously again with the theme park kind of launching. Some franchise care for that brand that really has been underutilized this entire generation and the last one. So, yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page about Donkey Kong movie. All right, round 2. What's your next one?
I think, and so this is tied into the Switch successor, and some of this might be wishful thinking because I think that the online component is going to be an even more important piece. I think they recognize that. I think you look at the success of things like Mario Kart and other Splatoon and other online franchises. I think that they're finally going to try and get voice working, which means I think 2024 is the year of the official Nintendo headset to go with the new console.
Okay, that would be huge. Would it be Bluetooth or how's it connecting?
Oh god, something obscure and random. Yeah, it comes with a compact flash card and a cord that you need to put in the back of it. You know it's going to be weird and convoluted, and it's not like Nintendo doesn't have a history of having some sort of voice solution. You know, they have the app, which frankly is terrible. And I think that's something that's baked into the system as a ready-made solution is the right way to go for them. I also feel like there's a certain sense that even though they will always have very broad appeal and they're going to sort of have an E for everybody core, I think there's maybe, I feel like, more acceptance that their audience is a little bit more mature, and frankly I hope that means that they're a little bit more comfortable giving them access to online and chat and things like that. I think there's going to be weird restrictions. I think it's going to be something that's maybe only available on certain titles, or you have to like go through some kind of opt-in process on everyone, because they are so exceptionally protective of their younger audience, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if you spent a lot of time in the wild west that is
in the world
internet.
of the internet. Yes.
Yeah, you know how that can be, but yeah, I think that this is the generation where they frankly start taking it seriously and get on everybody else's level.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how they would handle online on a next gen platform, because we know they're carrying over the Nintendo account, right? That is something they've made very clear, is the Nintendo account is going to be their biggest bridge to kind of keep consumers engaged in the Nintendo ecosystem, no matter when they choose to adopt the next platform. And I could see them just sticking with the smartphone solution. I don't know. It's interesting because voice chat. Go ahead.
Well, they've also like they had a pretty robust mobile strategy that they've largely divested from at this point, and I think that returning to that for a core function is potentially not something that I think would be that appealing to them.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that maybe Nintendo just views it as, if a consumer is old enough to have a smartphone, or their parents let them have a smartphone, then their parents are okay with them chatting, or they have the parental controls app on smartphone too, which is actually pretty good and it is pretty useful in a lot of ways. I don't know. I am such a Nintendo gamer that, Justin, when you and I were going to play Halo last month, I was like, I don't have a headset for my Xbox. I just chat on Discord all the time. And
yep. We had to come up with some creative solutions. You know what though? If you look at Microsoft has their branded Xbox headset. Sony has a pile of branded PlayStation headsets. And I think that this is an opportunity for branded hardware. And as somebody who had a long retail career in tech and hardware before I started becoming a writer and doing other things, I also understand that those are frankly significantly higher margin items than anything else. Like audio equipment in particular is enormous margins. They're fairly inexpensive to produce, and Nintendo does in fact like to make money.
They do. Yeah, they do. And they're making a lot of it lately.
And
Here's a question for you, Justin. When was the last time that you logged into just a generic lobby for like Halo? Or do you ever talk to just the random people that you're playing against, or exclusively your party?
No, never on purpose. Like, honestly, even things where I play like co-op focused games, like I've been playing quite a bit of the finals since I reviewed that, and I only chat with friends. Frankly, games where you like are like by default opted into the public chat, like the Call of Duties do this. I hate it. I hate it so much. It is an obstacle to me wanting to play if I have to, even if I have to go through the effort of opting out. And frankly, I kind of was thinking about that as it relates to this too. And I think that like, having it an off by default thing would make sense. But like, if you can restrict it to like only your like specific friends list or squad can chat with you or things like that, I think there's tools to do it. But like if we could easily just boot up Splatoon, throw on our little red and green headsets with the big M and the big L and go, I think that sounds great.
Yeah, I think that's actually where I was going with this. Is I could see it happening, but I think it will be restricted to just your friends, just people in your party, because
it would not be the same as everybody else. That I can say with certainty if they did do this.
They would do something interesting. I like that pick though, a Nintendo headset. That could be cool. Maybe some better Bluetooth support on the next console too, because there's like a second delay on Bluetooth audio on Switch. That, remember, they baked it in like 2 years after launch or 3 years after launch. It was weird.
Yeah, well, and remember early gen Switch issues with the Bluetooth antenna on one of the Joy-Con.
That's right.
They had to get like updated in future hardware revisions.
Because it was missing like the tiny piece of styrofoam or something like that served as a conductor. It was bizarre. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, my next prediction for round 2 here is Pokemon Black and White remakes. I think that we're seeing a new Pokemon game this year. We do every year. Maybe they've learned their lesson and will take a year off, but I don't think so. So I think that we're going to get Black and White remakes from Ilka, which is the same team that worked on the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes. They came out in 2021. If they started on these right after that, that's a 3-year dev time. Seems about right for the amount of polish that those games come out with. So not super long time to work on that game. But I think I'm calling them Pitch Black and Bright White also as my titles for these games.
Excellent.
So I can
Vin Diesel on the cover of Pokemon Pitch Black.
Yeah, oh no. Yeah, he'd be a great legendary to catch.
Do you foresee these as Switch titles?
I do. Yeah, I think that when I look at Pokemon, they're always about a year behind adopting the next generation of Nintendo consoles. You go to Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Black and White 1, actually. They've all come out. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee didn't come out until 2018. That was a year and a half after the Switch launch. So I think these will be Switch titles, but playable on Switch 2. I don't know what we want to call it. They're not going to call it Switch 2, are they?
No. I mean, it would be too easy if they did. We can't have. There's going to be something interesting, creative, and certainly I doubt anything that we can predict. Do you? And so you see these as feature complete updates, not a Let's Go style.
Yeah, I think they'll just be straight up remakes of Black and White 1, and people will cry that they are not including the Black and White 2 content. That's just not how they do it. They didn't include Emerald content in the Ruby Sapphire remakes or Crystal content. They just don't. They don't do it. So it'll be Black and White remake, and we'll never see a remake of Black and White 2. But
I was going to say, my predictions, we'll talk about it on this show and talk about how, well, certainly they're going to add those down the road, and then they never will.
Yeah. And my dream is that they would actually kind of take a break from Pokemon and roll these out as sprite-based, maybe HD 2D, maybe partner with Square Enix to make Pokemon. They would be happy to, probably, but they won't do that.
That would be
They'll
cool.
keep it cheap. They'll keep it internal, or they'll outsource to Ilka, which was probably not a huge lift for them financially. So I think that's what it will be, but Pokemon's in dire need of reinvention next generation, but I don't think we're going to get it. But that's where I'm at with Pokemon.
I think that's a pretty solid prediction.
How about you? Next round, round 3, third prediction.
You know what's funny? So there's something that you said in regards to the Pokemon games that also ties into my next one, which was you were getting to that kind of 3-year development cycle point. You know what came out in 2021 was Metroid Dread. And so I feel like we're about due for the next 2D Metroid. Everything that Nintendo has said has indicated that was, the bestseller in the franchise. It was critically acclaimed. And, we know that bestseller in the franchise for Metroid just frankly doesn't mean what it means with some of the other ones. But it's honestly kind of a prestige franchise for them that doesn't necessarily need to move 20 million units to be a success. The fact that it sold multiple millions of units, I think, is enough for it to deserve a follow-up. And that is what I do think it'll be. I think that it's a follow-up to Dread. Could be Dread 2, could be Metroid Ultra Dread or something like that. But just based on its success, based on timing, based on the fact that we don't even know if they're done with the logo for Metroid Prime 4 yet. I think that we can anticipate this is I think this is the next Metroid thing we get.
That would be awesome. Dread was amazing, and Mercury's team also made Samus Returns. They are working on some independent projects, not for Nintendo, so maybe they have another team that's just the Metroid team, though, working on this. I'm sure that Nintendo is a great partner for them. They're not going to say no if Nintendo comes knocking again, right? And it'll be interesting to see what Metroid 6 is, because they said Dread was the end of the Metroid story, and that where it went from here would be something different. Who knows what that means, or if it was just a buzzword to get people to pick it up. You never really know, but I'd love to see more 2D Metroid. Dread is amazing. That game is so gorgeous. I think about replaying it all the time. Also came out in 2021, Mario Party Superstars. I think it could be time for a new Mario Party, but that's not one of my official predictions.
I was going to say, are we just going to keep bouncing back? We're just going to go down the list of every Nintendo 2021 release, and that's our prediction for next year.
Yeah, what else came out in 2021? WarioWare Get It Together came out. That already got a sequel. I don't know. Those are the main ones that I remember from that year. Advance Wars was supposed to, and famously did not.
Anyways, and we're not going to see that.
No, never again. Let's see. I'll go to my biggest one, which is my Switch 2 prediction. I do think this is the year, and I didn't want to spend 5 predictions on Switch 2, so I've kind of bundled a lot of miniature predictions into one in this next prediction, which is Switch 2. It's going to be announced in March. I think it will be announced the week after Princess Peach Showtime comes out. That comes out on the 22nd. They aren't going to want to destroy any of the hype leading up to that game's launch weekend, so they won't talk about it until the week after. Why? Because March 31st is Nintendo's big end of fiscal year investors meeting. Investors are going to want to know about hardware plans. They're going to talk about it before that, so it doesn't come out, codename this is coming out this year. They'll get out in front of it and announce it before that meeting. That's my prediction. It's going to come out in October. It's going to come out in October with the launch title being the new 3D Mario. It's not going to be Odyssey 2. It's going to be something else, is the new 3D Mario game. And I'm putting it in October because it ties into a prior prediction, Justin, which was that Pokemon is a November game, and that's a Switch game. So they're not going to launch a new console the same month as they launch a Switch game. That'd be weird. So they'll launch the Switch 2 in October, with Mario as the big flagship title, Mario Kart 9 within the console's first year, and Metroid Prime 4 in spring of 2025. So that is my huge prediction for Switch 2 rollout. I think those are the big 3 games that we're going to get as the big reveal. Will be Metroid Prime 4, Mario Kart 9, and a new 3D Mario. We'll see some other little stuff too. Like maybe Square is working on something. Maybe we get, that Visions of Mana that was announced at the Game Awards. Maybe they'll be like, oh, hey, that's not coming to Switch, but it is coming to Switch 2. So that's what I think. I think Switch 2 is coming this year. I think it's coming out in October.
Logan with the bonsai bill prediction right there, just unloading the big one. That was excellent. I think all that makes sense. Something, Logan, that I always appreciate when you read into these things is how well you understand things like the financial calendar and how that influences decisions, especially like marketing decisions and things like that. Like, Nintendo, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit, like Nintendo's doing pretty well in the financial space right now. But it is something that is pretty carefully curated when you make announcements, when quarters and fiscal years close and things like that absolutely impact what we talk about. And sometimes we see it just in simple news stories, like when things like GTA get mentioned in investor calls and things like that, because they move the needle, and that is what makes people like money. And like from a financial standpoint, publicly traded companies, that is kind of what they're trying to do. And so that's like those are key inflection points on the calendar to look to for potential announcements like that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think everything that you said made perfect sense. I'm going to remain pretty skeptical about Metroid Prime 4 until I see anything at all, and it sounds like they're not in a turbulent development. And so, like, how long ago was it that we heard that like Retro was going into like kind of get them on track? And
5 years ago.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is it's a 5-year dev cycle is very normal for a modern AAA game, especially like what's sure to be a graphical powerhouse next gen first person shooter. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you ignore what happened before, because it sounds like they completely scrapped the original vision of Metroid Prime 4 and they just handed the concept of Metroid Prime 4 over to Retro and said, go. I think 5 years is very normal. And I think that we would have heard about it last year, maybe even this year. Look at Dread. They announced that in June, boom, out in October. They could do that again. Like, we don't know anything about it. It could be troubled, or it could be just going along perfectly fine and on track to launch next year. Like, it's really hard to know because Nintendo doesn't usually pull the curtain back that early like they did for Prime 4, and they never will again because of what happened with Prime 4. So I'm not sure calling it in a troubled development is right. It's fair to think that, but we don't know. It could be going along swimmingly, and they just haven't shown it to us yet. Yeah, if nothing else, it might no longer be a troubled development, but clearly something went down.
I want to know what that looked like. That's a great Nintendo mystery. What went wrong so quickly with Metroid Prime 4? That they scrapped it entirely. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so
I agree with all that. I strongly suspect that if we get a Switch successor this year, it's a fall release, and that's based on things we've discussed before, like the what we know of their release calendar, which largely dries up at the end of the summer, leading into the fall, which leaves space for something like that to drop. I think that an announcement in late winter, early spring, it gives them exactly what they need in terms of like production time to get units built and on, ready to be on store shelves for a big holiday season, which is of course when you're going to sell them like gangbusters. So I think that's really logical. I love that you mentioned, by the way, a new 3D Mario game, because that is on my list as well. I think 2024 is the year of the next 3D Mario. In particular, I think that it could be the killer launch title that a new console needs. I think, like you, it's not going to be Odyssey 2. It's not Galaxy 3. Frankly, it's not a rehash of anything that's done before. Whatever it is going to be built from the ground up to lean into whatever it is that the new Nintendo console does. And, it'll be a combination. absolutely exquisite 3D platformer plus showcase for what the hardware is capable of, it'll probably remain like one of the best pieces of software on it for its entire life as well, because that's kind of how these things tend to work. But I think that it's something where it, whatever its gimmick, whatever its twist is something we haven't seen before, and frankly probably won't have any success trying to guess at. Just like the capping mechanic, the gravity mechanics, and things like that. Like there was no like basis or foundation for these that you can easily like point as of course they were going to do this because they did this before. And I think that this is going to be exactly one of those situations.
Yeah, I agree with you. What I think is hard is we always say Nintendo with their next hardware is going to just do something crazy we never would have been able to guess. But they kind of do that every other generation, right? I mean, NES and SNES are you can group those two together. You can group the N64 and the GameCube together, the Wii and the Wii U together, the Switch and what? Like, I think it could just be iterative, and it'll still do something. Like, Super Mario 3D Land came out in that system's first year and showed off the 3D effect, and that was the big thing it tried to do. So, yeah, I don't know what Mario's going to do, but I'm excited to see it, because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. But I'm looking forward to that a lot. And something also... So you saying Mario is this year, you also think Switch successor is this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I again, not absolutely. I'm not that level of certainty, but if you ask me when it is, my answer is 2024. I think that is extremely likely. I think of any possible date, any possible year, it is the one I'm the most confident in. I think that it is much more likely to be 2024 than 2025 or 2026.
I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and I have said I think it would be a mistake if it doesn't come out this year. It doesn't mean it's going to, but I do think it would be a mistake. And a reason that I have not gotten to share on a show yet that I've been thinking about over the last week, you know what comes out next year? Grand Theft Auto 6. And that game is of a magnitude that I don't even know if you want to put a console up against it, let alone a 3D Mario or a new Mario Kart. Like, those will still sell and do well. But GTA 6 is going to be so huge, bigger than maybe anything we've ever seen in this industry before. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say. The trailer set records. It was just bonkers. It is going to dominate the conversation. It's going to dominate what people are searching about and talking about and spending their money on. And yes, it's just one game, but this game's in a tier of its own. And it's, again, not a direct competitor with Nintendo, but you can get out in front of it and get your console out this October, where it doesn't look like there's a ton from the other guys right now in terms of software or hardware. I think it's the time. March 2017, the Switch was the only thing out, and it was huge for that reason. Do that again. Do that again this October, and I think it's a better start than spending another holiday season of people getting sick of the Switch and then rolling this out around the same time as GTA 6. I think that this year just makes more sense.
Would you anticipate seeing GTA 6 on the new Nintendo hardware?
So, I don't think so. I think it's going to be a PS4 level machine. So, I think GTA 6 is pushing beyond that. How about you? You think there's a chance?
I mean, I certainly think that there's a chance, but I'm kind of with you. I think that from a Rockstar perspective, they don't need to do anything to try and sell additional copies. It's going to sell ridiculous number of copies, and so the development time and cost to get it to work on what will initially be a pretty small install size, just based off of how quickly they can produce units of, like, single digit million units on the market's probably not worth it. And frankly, Rockstar does like to go back to the well and resell their games, and so a port a year or two down the line, I think, would be fairly in keeping with what we could expect out of them. So I could see something like that happening. But it would be pretty cool to get new hardware at a new GTA game around the same time.
I don't know if it's out of the question that we see GTA 5 on the Switch, or on the Switch successor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or
I'd agree with that.
I think we're going to see a ton of ports. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake would just be an awesome game. If this thing is a step up, it'll be around a PS4, and Final Fantasy VII Remake started as a PS4 game. That would be an awesome one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, something like Elden Ring could be awesome on a Nintendo platform.
Yeah,
there's a lot of choices,
especially if it does like we expect and retains things like the portability factor, things like that. There's a lot of like long, expansive games like that would be wonderful to be able to switch back and forth between playing on the big screen and playing in a portable fashion.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so we just did your prediction for round 3, so now I think it's mine for round 3. Okay, I'm saving that one for the end. So, oh wait, we've already done 3.
Yeah,
We're
so
on round 4
I've
now?
done 4 predictions, and then
You've
you
done
and I have at
4.
least
Okay.
one that overlaps. So
Yep, I have 2 left. You just have 1 left?
I just have 1 left.
Okay, I have 2 whoppers for my last one. I got to pick which one to go with here.
Ooh.
I am going to go with another Switch successor launch window game. Ocarina of Time HD. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to get a full remake of Ocarina of Time that is in 1080p, 60 FPS on the Switch successor. I saw a post the other day that said Ocarina of Time 3D is now as old as Ocarina of Time was when 3D came out, right? 13-year gap between the two. Why not remake it again? I think that this isn't really like a Last of Us situation where that game got too many remakes too fast. This is fair. 13 years between a handheld version, an HD version. I think it would be an awesome way to get Zelda on the new machine. Mario's your front runner, right? He's leading this generation, like Breath of the Wild led off the last one. But if you sneak in a beautiful, gorgeous, full-price remake of Ocarina of Time, that's a great title for Nintendo to add to their system.
Here's my argument against that, and I think that's a good prediction. But if you don't know Ocarina of Time like the back of your hand, and you're approaching it for the first time, a lot of its design is fairly like mid-90s. It's fairly obtuse. A lot of times you just need to go to talk to every person in the village till you get to the right person who tells you where to go, or you have to be able to pick up like a single couple of words from a sentence indicating where your next objective is. Of course, you can always talk to like Navi, but sometimes Navi's not all that helpful either. And in particular, navigating things like the complex dungeons can be really challenging, and just from a game design point, we weren't necessarily as good back then of like telegraphing how to get things done. I think that there is potential for that to turn off a lot of new users who frankly aren't used to that, like people who have become young adults in the last 13 years, or have become adults in the last 26 years who maybe didn't have exposure to it, whereas something like a more modern Zelda title, like from the GameCube or Switch era, that is a little bit more refined in those ways and a little bit more user friendly, might do a better job of that, of acting as its like I don't know about ground up, but like its reintroduction to the Zelda franchise. But I would love to play a fully rebuilt Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, it's interesting. Link's Awakening, that trading quest is super obtuse, and they didn't really change it at all. They just threw it in there, and I think that, it won't be a completely untouched remake if it happens. There'll be a new hint system like there is in every Nintendo game now. Maybe that's how they handle it. Oh, you go to... Even Ocarina of Time 3D actually already had that. They had the Sheikah stones that you climbed inside, you crawled into them, and then you could watch videos where it showed where Link was supposed to be running next. So they already kind of thought about that 13 years ago.
What would be really interesting would be a full remake of The Legend of Zelda.
I would love that. I've thought about that a lot.
Fully rebuilt and with some modernization touches, like a little bit more to help you with wayfinding and things like that.
Just top down.
Boy, what if they went as far as to make it like their modern 3D open world titles, and smaller set that map with more or less copying those dungeons, things like that.
An open world Zelda that only took like 12 hours to beat. Yeah. That sounds so cool. That sounds really cool. There's no way that we're dreaming now. That was
not firmly not a prediction, firmly just idle wishing. But how cool would something like that be?
I do think we're gonna get Zelda stuff this year. I think that
there has to be.
I still don't think Twilight Princess and Wind Waker are out of the question for Switch, but I think they're gonna want something newer for Switch too. I think like, hey, here's how powerful our machine is now. Look at this Zelda game. I think that could do it. Metroid Prime 4 is also that, though. All right, wrap it up. Your final prediction for Nintendo in 2024.
My final prediction is I think we're going to hear the announcement of the next Nintendo theme park, the next Super Nintendo World. The one in Florida is supposed to be wrapping up, I think, next year, and will be opening up. And these are multi-year projects to get them off the ground. That makes 3 worldwide between the 2 here in the United States and the one over in Japan. Just going off of Universal Studios alone, they have 5 locations worldwide, so I could see them expanding this into other markets. Universal Studios China, for example, or Singapore are locations where they could potentially get exposure to a large number of people in other big markets. I think we saw from what we saw at PAX that they really have been putting a lot of emphasis on live in-person experiences built around Nintendo and the different things that they do. And I think that the timing is right, where as this one is getting ready to open and launch, giving people the anticipation of another one. They also, they've already announced the DK expansion, and basically that means that these are eventually going to open, but for now we don't have any more new announcements as far as these theme parks
Sorry
go.
to cut you off. I had to look it up to confirm. It is already under construction in Singapore. So
son of a gun!
It's already come true.
Wow.
Technically, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm apparently too good at this. So
yeah, that announcement flew under the radar. It was like nobody talked about it. It was like 2 or 3 months ago. So it was very recent that this was talked about. But
I even did my research on that one. I was like, there's just 3, right? Yeah, there are just 3. Okay. Where's the next logical place? Again, like China and Singapore.
You nailed it. You nailed it, Justin.
Nailed it. 1 for 1. Listeners, if you're keeping score at home, that's 1 point for Justin. Go ahead and tally.
He's already on the board.
That's right.
2024. I'll wrap up here with my final prediction, something I wish had already happened by now, but it still has not. And that is, I think we're going to get an announcement of an Earthbound remake.
Ooh.
I think that this is the year that Earthbound finally comes back. I think that the Switch has been home to no shortage of miracles. Super Mario RPG coming back last year was incredible, and nobody would have thought that would have happened. And I just think it's time. I think Earthbound would be the one. I know people want Mother 3. I think they will start with Earthbound. I think Grezzo will make it. They haven't made anything for Nintendo in 3 years. That's going back to 2021. Miitopia, their port of that came out 3 years ago, and I like to think they've been quietly toiling away at remaking Earthbound and making it a little more modern, because that game is very hard and obtuse in places. It's a 90s RPG after all. I like to think that they're working on that, and it's going to come out for Switch and Switch 2. Maybe not this year, but it'll get announced this year. It's also very hopeful, but I just think it's time, man. I think that so many franchises have come back. We even got an F-Zero Battle Royale last year. Like, why not Earthbound? It's been so untouched for so long, but it's on modern consoles. You can play the original on Switch, so there's no reason they couldn't go and remake it, and I think they will. I think this is the year.
Yeah, so obviously Nintendo knows that that's something that people have liked, back when Reggie was still in charge. It was a sort of running joke, people asking him about it. They're well aware that there is a certain vocal portion of the fan base who's interested in it. And as we've seen recently from things like Advance Wars, they're not afraid to dip their toe in and say, if there really is interest, show us, and we'll give you a chance to give us a reason to keep this franchise going. I think that Mother's a great candidate for that. I think that releasing the original Earthbound, remaking it, and seeing how it does to see if it's something that they want to continue to invest in would be excellent. Frankly, I think that Earthbound, even though I'm not one of those super hardcore Earthbound people, I think that is something that if it managed to get a foothold, could fit really well into their transmedia strategy. I think that there's so many iconic characters and things like that, merch, goofy anime on Netflix. There's all sorts of things that they could do with it if there was the interest for it. And I think that because of how, frankly, open-minded they've kind of seemed lately when it comes to a lot of projects like that, I think if there is a time for it, the time is short-term looking forward now.
I agree. Look at what we're getting, another Code this month. That hasn't had an entry in over 10 years, and the second one didn't even come out in North America, and it's getting a full-blown remake from the ground up. Not even just... We talk all the time about how when Nintendo remakes a game, it's a very straight-up remake. This is not that. This is giving you full character control. It's totally making these games bigger and belong on a home console. It's awesome, and these are not nearly as well known as Earthbound is. They don't have anybody in Smash. They don't have this cult following that's been begging for this for 30 years. It's crazy. This is getting it. The Famicom Detective Club's games got localized for the first time ever. Advance Wars, like Justin mentioned. F-Zero, Mario RPG. There's so many examples on the Switch. Mother's the last big domino to fall. I guess Star Fox, but the last one wasn't too
good. I like
good.
Star Fox.
Yeah,
but I do. I think that it's just such a great prove it situation, and it fits just really well in with that.
And it will sell. I'll tell you that right now. If it comes out on Switch as a remake, it will sell because the amount of conversation that has kept this thing alive over the 30 years since it has come out, it'll do well.
I think if nothing else,
well.
you can anticipate that there will be a substantial amount of free marketing, just in terms of how much conversation there is around it.
Yes, 100%. So, Mother 2, Earthbound remake coming in 2024. Not coming this year, announced this year. It'll come out next year. Oh, also, Thousand Year Door. That's one people have been asking for forever, and here it is. Like they're giving us kind of everything we've ever wanted. So I think
they might be listening.
Yeah, they definitely know about it. There's some reason that they can't, but not that I know of. Or they would tell us. I don't know. So I think it's going to happen. But there we go. Those are our 10 Nintendo predictions for 2024. These things will happen, and we'll revisit them at the end of the year and see how we did. And some of them have already happened. Wow, we can predict the future and the past. So right here on the board. Next week, hopefully we can get some predictions from Chris if he's back and see what he thinks is going to happen. Or maybe one thing that's already happened. Okay, here's something else that is starting to happen. Nintendo Switch games are disappearing from store shelves. So, of course, be warned, dear listener, this is going to happen this year. Everything that happens, people will try to tie into new hardware. No matter what it is. Oh, you can't find Pikmin 3 on shelves anywhere? Nintendo's gearing up for Switch 2, right? That's just how the narrative is this year, so don't get too swept up in the hype. But this is a report from Kotaku. Some Twitter accounts like Nintendo have been noticing that Paper Mario the Origami King, Metroid Dread, Pikmin 3, Mario Odyssey, Tropical Freeze, a ton of other games are starting to no longer be available on store shelves physically. Their availability is varying, they're running out of stock, and they're not getting restocked. And this is not that weird to me. Which is why I wanted to bring it up, because I think this is kind of a non-story. Games go out of print all the time, Justin. Maybe it means they're gearing up for a Nintendo Selects line, which we still haven't seen on this hardware. Like, I don't think this really indicates anything, but I want to hear what you think.
No, I'm with you 100%. And like Nintendo in particular, throughout their history, they would always rather like make 1 million of something and sell 1 million of it than make 3 million of it and sell 2 million of it. Like they want to sell through and pat themselves on the back for selling through and not have a bunch of additional copies of things laying around. They as you mentioned, they haven't done any selects line. I think that a selects line in the near future would make a lot of sense. They don't like marking stuff down, but that's when we finally do get those marked down, so we can get stuff for like $20. So that would be really cool. And frankly, there's also a lot of reports about how significantly places like Best Buy are pivoting away from physical releases, and that they're starting to pull these things off of shelves. I think that it's a pretty natural step in both the retail and Nintendo life cycle right now. That's not to say that they might not be a relation there. One of the reasons for them not doing additional print runs might be because they want to leave either store shelves or save resources for other stuff coming out. But I think that you'd be seeing a lot of this stuff happen regardless.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this list of games, Justin, and I want to point out that with one or two exceptions, there's about 20 games on this list. Every game on this list has a sequel already out on Switch. So something like Paper Mario the Origami King, we're getting Thousand Year Door this year. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, 3 is out. Mario U Deluxe, Mario Wonder is out. WarioWare Get It Together, WarioWare Move It is out. Like, there's these games, maybe they don't want games from competing series on the shelf next to each other. Instead, they have, here's the new one. Because like you said, retail space is very limited nowadays. The displays aren't as big, so maybe it's as simple as them getting choosy with what they want displayed. It could be as simple as that, or it could be nothing. Like I don't think it has anything to do with Switch 2.
I wouldn't bet on it.
The only argument I could see for it being about new hardware is, are they reprinting games to say, oh look, it's available, you can play this on Switch 2, like a little sticker that says that also plays on Nintendo Switch Advance. Like, maybe, but then this selection of games becomes even weirder to me, if that's the case. Because, like, where's Breath of the Wild? Where's Tears of the Kingdom? Yeah. Where's Mario Kart 8? Like, where are these things if that's the case? So, yeah, don't read into that. Try not to panic. We're not going to try and rile you up too much about Switch rumors on this show. We're just going to wait and hear about it when it happens, I think. Be our approach.
We are not rumor mongers.
We never will be. I wanted to mention real quick, Nintendo stock hit a huge high this week. So just very different point than where they were 10 years ago, you could say. It's just kind of crazy to see. Yeah, Nintendo's shares have hit a record high of about $54.14 a share after the conversion as of Wednesday, reported by the Wall Street Journal. So huge highs for Switch. Nothing really to discuss here, Justin, but yep, big year. Last year makes sense. Have their biggest year ever last year, and maybe new hardware this year. Makes sense that people are buying big right now.
Yeah, the big N is doing well, and frankly, investing is speculation. You're looking ahead, and everybody's anticipating new hardware, so like that is directly influencing how excited people are about this stock. People want to buy it now, so that as the value of the company and therefore stock increases with this new release, that they're riding that up. So it's to be expected, but it really is such a market change from where they were in the past. With how low their lows were coming off of the Wii U. Frankly, it wasn't that long ago that we were seeing an embarrassing number of reports about, oh, maybe Nintendo should sell to Microsoft and things like that. And that's all hooey, and you can see why.
Yeah, 100%. It's no different. This stock price rising is no different than investors taking a bet. Like, we're taking bets that Switch 2's coming this year.
Yep.
Everybody thinks so. Will Nintendo make it happen? We'll find out. But let's get into our third topic here, which is Masahiro Sakurai starting work on the next Super Smash Brothers? So this happened over the winter break a little bit, and then some more happened just this week. Last month, Sakurai, in a video on his YouTube series, which, by the way, I know I've shouted it out here before, but this YouTube series that Sakurai did is unprecedented access into the mind of one of, I think, the greatest game creators of all time. It's kind of wild. If you haven't watched them, you need to go watch them, because there's just some amazing stuff about the games he's developed, stories from development, his development philosophy, and even just kind of his philosophy on life. It's awesome. You need to watch this. Masahiro Sakurai on Creating Games is the name of this YouTube series. But anyways, last month he said, as for me, I'm still creating games for the time being, but I'm also making this YouTube channel. I'd never done anything like this before starting out, so in a way, you can say I haven't exactly stayed put either. And the context of those comments is he was talking about kind of, don't begrudge your favorite creators when they're no longer making what you like them for, when they're doing something different, is kind of what he said. But then he tails out of that saying, but I'm still making games. And everyone goes, you are? Because last year you said you were semi-retired. And then this week, he said his YouTube series is ending, which only tells me they're going into full development on something. What do you make of all this, Justin?
I think that that's sensible. I think that he's, very clear that development is like the next step for what he's been doing. He had a chance to take a breath, but I think that shutting that down to focus full time on a project is exactly why you would shut something like that down. It's not clear to me what it's going to be. Smash Brothers,
There's that pressing too. Make it happen.
Yeah, and like Smash Ultimate itself isn't actually like done. They just announced their new spirits coming yesterday. I think they put a tweet out about a bunch that they have coming out. Not that I necessarily think that's what's occupying all of his time, but it could be. I don't know. We had a great conversation on a previous show. Folks, if you haven't listened to that, you might want to go back and give it a listen about whether or not we think the franchise is done and what the future of it might look like. He has a history, like you see in a lot of like auteur directors, of like one for me, one for you. And his most recent one was one for Nintendo. So if I had to guess, and I don't have to, but I'm going to, but since I'm going to guess, my guess is, yeah, he is going into full development on another project, but this is a one for him project, something that he wants to work on. Probably, again, if I'm idly speculating, something new that he's creating, and that it's his chance to flex that creative mind and muscle, and this is probably what he'll do before he goes back to Smash after that.
Hear me out though. What if the one for me was this YouTube series?
Ooh,
because he
interesting.
definitely had to get some okays from some people
sure.
to talk about everything he talked about. What if that was the one for me? I'm gonna go take 2 years and try this thing I've never tried before, and then get back into Smash.
I suppose that's possible.
Smash is so huge. It is the greatest selling fighting game of all time, Smash Brothers Ultimate. Nintendo's not going to want to wait too long into the next generation before another one. And then you have this comment from Sakurai, which can really be viewed two ways, where he said, I can't imagine a Smash Brothers without me. Does that mean the series is done, or that he's coming back for another one? I think it's time for him to shift into a producer role and really
Exactly
kind
what I
of
was
what
gonna say.
Aonuma did.
Yep.
Yep, hand it off.
The
Find
exact
somebody
model
to
I
hand
was
it off.
thinking. And like he has the people he's been mentoring. He has his lieutenants. I think that succession planning is something that I think would do this franchise well. I think that it would save him. Like clearly, you look at him by the end of releasing any of the recent Smash Brothers. He's a dried out husk of a man. He puts his entire heart and soul into these, and I think that I have to believe that he probably doesn't love that aspect of it. And just as fans and people who frankly wish developers would be extremely taken care of. I hope he doesn't end up in that situation again. So yeah, I think a high up producer role is perfect. I think that if he can do that and guide, call shots, offer feedback and tweaks, and do some mentoring as I get the next generation ready, I think that that's a good situation, and that might be enough. That might be enough for this not to be him just going back to the Smash mines and burning himself out. I also think that, as we've seen from Nintendo, they've really learned the value of games as a platform. And I think that if they're heading into a new generation, getting the Smash platform built now so it can grow and expand and become what it eventually becomes again makes a lot of sense. And so I think there's certainly a lot of reasons why this would be Smash.
Yeah, I got very giddy at the idea of him doing another one because I had accepted this was it. Like, I really believed this was the time. Sakurai is famous for saying this is his last one and then being, he's got one more in him. This has happened, I think, 3 times now. I think he said Melee was his last one, and then Brawl, and then 4, and then Ultimate. But just the size and scope of what Ultimate was, how big that game was, all the characters, bringing everyone back, it really felt like a send-off for him as the forerunner of this series. And I don't know if that's true anymore. How will he come back and one-up himself? Maybe he can't, but that's what everybody said after
but
Smash
also
4.
like maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe our expectations for what these video games are for Nintendo is different from what they were before, where we were kind of demanding a absolutely complete package year one, maybe with a couple of DLC packs. Now, you look at what's happened with things like Mario Kart 8, and I think the audience is ready to accept a very long tail of additions and surprises, and like looking forward to a new character reveal like once or twice a year, I think is something that frankly we kind of like. And so I feel like, as long as we have that expectation going in, and as long as the audience is in the mode to accept that, it doesn't have to be as good from day one, because we can always just have that in the back of our heads that, maybe we'll get that next. Maybe we'll get that next. I mean, like how many years did we spend, predicting or hoping for Sora in Smash Brothers? And like, look at how long that took. Like, I think that you can drop it right now and people can have a wish list and frankly be comfortable thinking that might get answered in 7 years.
Yeah, and I think that for me, I think that they're thinking through right now, how do we do this? Because if you roll out Smash as a platform, and there's 20 characters at launch, and then DLC for a decade, I think that is a pretty tough comparison to Ultimate, which had 70 characters at launch, and then DLC for a few years. So for me, the best case scenario is just start with Smash Ultimate. Make it Smash Ultimate Deluxe or Gold or Complete or whatever. Launch that as your Switch game, and then bring this team back together to just do what they were doing, which was making awesome DLC. And I think that I would like to see that, because everybody's character is someone's favorite. Seriously, even the most obscure Fire Emblem character, everyone in there is somebody's favorite. And it would be a tough pill to swallow to go back to basics on that. I think that with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they nailed it, and that eventually got more content, and it's awesome now, and I think that it was always awesome. And I think Smash Brothers could be good for the same thing. Like, let it take a generation where it's a port. The Smash for next gen is a port, and that secures all their third-party partnerships carry over. You get Sora back, you get Snake back, you get all these guys back, and then you get a bunch of new ones. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm not sure how they're going to handle it, though.
Yeah, I think making it if the next console is back compatible, I think it solves for that. And I think opening the door, frankly, to do something new and start anew is good for the long term health of the franchise. So I think, frankly, we're at opposite ends of the spectrum here. I think a new from scratch that plays some kind of different, some sort of generational tweaks and adjustments to it would be fantastic, especially if you still have ready and easy access to Ultimate. There's also things that make it complicated, like licensing of a lot of these characters, that just from a business standpoint can make that really challenging, especially to like keep maintaining this into perpetuity. It's not as though Square signs a thing that says, okay, Sora is in Smash, and then you just have Sora for Smash forever, and you can do whatever you want with them. Usually these things have limitations, expirations, and specific parameters that you have to do to respect the license. And frankly, I think it's just easier if you don't or you negotiate those things anew as they come up, and then every year we can look forward to additional characters that have not been in here before, and then also returning favorites, and you always have that hope that whoever your favorite is will be part of the next batch of announcements.
Yeah, I think with I get what you're saying. I'd love a new Smash with a new art style, new stages, new story mode. All that would be awesome. And I think that kind of what I have pitched, I'm a huge Smash fan. I play that game monthly at the least. Like, I am still actively playing Smash Brothers Ultimate. It's my most played game on Switch. So for me, an ongoing DLC pass would be great. But is that going to get the average consumer to pick Ultimate back up and actually buy this DLC for a game that they haven't touched in 4 years? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. This game has sold 30 million copies. How many of those 30 million, if they say, hey, it's still Smash Ultimate, here's the new Fighter Pass Wave 3, I don't know how many people pick that back up. Because it's not like Mario Kart, where it's new tracks that everybody can race on. It's a new character that you have to buy individually that you might not even like. You might not even like playing as them. You have your main. You have Kirby, who you like to play as an 8-player Smash. So maybe for that reason, a new one's the way to go. But on the flip side of that, I could see frustration from a new character reveal. Oh, it's Byleth. The 2% of people that like Byleth are thrilled, and the rest of us are like, oh god, him again. He took up another reveal trailer. I can see it going both ways, where Ultimate was so special because the day they announced the title for that game, they announced everyone is here. So you knew every time you got a character reveal, it would be somebody brand new to the series. But now it's, okay, is it going to be someone new and exciting like Master Chief or Phoenix Wright for me, or is it going to be Incineroar? Like, I think that there's just not as much hype there. It's tricky. Mario Kart, I look at Mario Kart and I'm like, yeah, start that as a platform. Launch it with 20 tracks, add 4 new ones every 2 months. You're set for life. That's great, because 20 tracks, people could get a lot of mileage out of that. But Smash Brothers, going from what we have to kind of the soft reboot that you're talking about, I don't know. It's tricky. I think it's the hardest franchise to follow up on
for
the
sure.
next machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
By far. But if there's one man I think is up to the task, and one team, I think that is a pretty good pick. Sakurai and his team at Sora and Bandai Namco are pretty phenomenal. So we'll see what they do. But I would love a new Smash Brothers to get announced within the first couple of years of the next machine. That's just, there's nothing like that hype cycle for a new Smash Brothers. It's just huge. All right, let's get into our final topic, which is EGAD's emails. And I actually want to save some of these for when Chris is here. So we'll just answer one this week before we get out of here. And this one comes from Chad. He emailed the show toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter @toadstoolbr. And Chad wrote, for fun, I made a list of my 7 dream video game sequels. And then Chad has a brand new Okami game, a new Advance Wars game in the styles of Days of Ruin, Octopath Traveler 3, Triangle Strategy 2, Persona 6, a new Mario and Luigi game, and remakes of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. All very good picks, Chad. And Chad asks if you care to share, what are some of your dream video game sequels? Your answers don't have to be realistic. Chad also says, I look forward to listening to every Toadstool Boardroom episode in 2024 and beyond, and I'm excited that you'll be releasing videos of each episode again. Thanks for the support, Chad. All right, Justin. Dream video game sequels?
Yeah, I've got a couple that come to mind. Now, you know that I'm a giant Mega Man X fan, and the series left off on kind of a plop with Mega Man X8, and it's been many, many years since we've seen them go back to it. I would love to see a Mega Man X9. I would love to see them go back to a stick with a 2D art style and advance the story. If without getting too nerdy about the Mega Man lore, it has kind of iffy, potentially divergent timeline between the Mega Man X series and what becomes the Mega Man Zero franchise, and it's not clear that it is a linear connection between the two. Like there could be some splitting there, and so like I would love to explore how all that works and how that goes down and what a potential different path might look like in Mega Man X9, and frankly, just any sign at all that this franchise is alive and well, and the way cooler version of Mega Man isn't forgotten. I would be like, there are a few announcements that I could see that would get me more hyped up than like Capcom dropping a trailer for Mega Man X9 and it looking like a classic return to 2D exploration, action heavy Mega Man.
I mean, it looked like, I don't know, they really gave some good care to Mega Man for a while there with 11. I know you're not a mainline Mega Man guy. You're mostly an
I
X
strongly
guy.
prefer the X series to Mega Man, and they haven't they haven't taken really good care of this branch of the franchise. I want to say it was like 2015 when it came out, something like that. So we're coming up on almost 10 years since we've had an entry in it. I mean, a Command Mission sequel wouldn't be bad either. That's a really cool turn-based RPG of Mega Man X back from the GameCube era. Something like that, something to explore this world and expand upon it, because I do think it's a really cool world that I just would love to spend more time in.
That's a great pick. You have any others, or is that the main one you wanted to?
Oh boy, do you want my impossible one?
Sure. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a Nintendo thing, but since we're imagining we can make a Nintendo thing, frankly, a lot of the reason why I ended up in games media is because I was fervently looking around E3 every year for a multiple year stretch, because I was hoping for the announcement of Two Human 2. That was made by Silicon Knights. They're the ones who did things like Eternal Darkness or the Twin Snakes port of Metal Gear Solid for the original GameCube. They were extremely talented studio that doesn't exist anymore. But if you haven't seen it, it was way ahead of its time. And I think that's part of its problem. But it's effectively a like Cyber Norse themed Diablo like, if that makes sense. Kind of isometric action RPG that is heavily focused on things like enemy loot drops and things like that. It had this really cool combat, like twin stick combat system. So you moved one stick, your sword attacks were with another one, and you would also switch like alternately between ranged weapons, and you could do air juggles with them. It was awesome. I loved it. It was frankly before things like the latest God of War or Valhalla and things like that made Vikings extremely in vogue in video games. Everything it does is pretty much what's now, but it did it a decade and a half before all of these things, and it didn't sell extremely well. It definitely had some problems. It had a very troubled development cycle that was started and restarted, and it released, it didn't fulfill some promises. Like, vendors had a DLC store that never got DLC items for them to sell, but it was designed to be able to support up to 4-player co-op, but it only ever achieved 2-player co-op. It left on a cliffhanger after the first one, and after some lawsuits between Silicon Knights and I think it was Epic, because it was like running on Unreal, they ended up losing all their lawsuits, losing the IP, losing all their money, and shuttering and going out of business, and that's ultimately what led to the death knell of Silicon Knights. And so it's never going to happen. I think technically Epic probably owns the IP at this point, and they probably like have it up like if you've ever seen like a deer head up on a wall, that's probably where they keep it as a trophy at this point. But I'd love to see it. That is like literally, that is my dream sequel.
Yeah, I have never heard that story before. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a cool game. Yeah, I played some Eternal Darkness last fall for the first time ever, and that is such an interesting game.
Too spooky for me.
It's not spooky anymore. It's really not. It's just fascinating. I don't know how much you know about like the sanity effects and everything in that game, but yeah, there's some really cool ones. And I played it with my girlfriend, who I didn't tell her at all about the sanity effects feature beforehand, just to see what her actual reaction was to these things. And the one that really got her was when it pretends to delete your save. Like, it boots you back to the main menu as if the GameCube hard crashed and reset, and then you click like continue and it says no save data found, and she's like, what, we worked so hard, and then it just pops back into it. It's super cool, really cool, a little bit cheeky, a little cheesy by today's standards, but cool ideas for the time.
An exceptionally talented studio, once upon a time, and just with the passage of time, like these folks like unfortunately come and go, and like they didn't last. One last one I'm going to squeeze through, because like not we just had a Zelda sequel, and it was pretty cool having a Zelda sequel. I wouldn't hate a Twilight Princess sequel.
I was going to say that too. Yeah, of course, classic. No, that would be awesome. That would be great. Return to that Hyrule, which I really like. That Link, who I really like.
Spend a little bit more time with that really cool version of Zelda, and her swords and like see what like the post Twilight Fallout and stuff.
Maybe use some of the ideas for the kind of initial draft of Twilight Princess, which is pretty commonly accepted that was kind of heavily scrapped and redone. So that would be awesome. It will never happen.
All right, what do you got?
We can dream. Okay, so I have a few. Obviously, I want an F-Zero sequel, but I think that it wouldn't be as good as GX, which is why I've settled on wanting a GX remake more. So that's not really my pick. Monkey Ball, I'm in the same place. Monkey Ball 2 is the perfect video game, and I don't think that they've tried multiple times to return to it, and it's been bad pretty much every time. So that can't really happen either. So a dream sequel. I want another Kid Icarus. I want another one. I was actually thinking that Kid Icarus is the perfect choice for Nintendo to do their spin on a Souls-like. I think that world with angels and demons and gods and mythology, it could work. Just giant boss battles where you play as this little angel boy with a bow and arrow that splits into two swords. It could be cool. So I would love to see another crack at Kid Icarus done by somebody. I don't know who.
Yeah, I know somebody who just finished their podcast recently, or their YouTube channel recently.
Oh, yes, give it back to him, please. Let him make another one. Let him make another one. That would be awesome. But I want to see that franchise come back. I don't know if we'll ever see the Uprising port that I long for, but I just think Kid Icarus and giant boss battles that are really difficult and really clever and a world to explore just seems like the right fit of a franchise. Zelda's kind of the easy other low-hanging fruit for that, but Zelda's formula is pretty set right now, and they're in a great place with it. So I think Kid Icarus could gain some serious traction if it came back in a Souls-like form. Other ones that I want, Captain Toad. I'd really love a sequel for that. I adore that game. They released some DLC for it on Switch that was just really brief, but it showed they had more ideas in the tank. So I'd love to see them go back to that for another one. That game is just really fantastic. I want a third Hyrule Warriors really badly with Tears of the Kingdom characters, please. That would be a lot of fun. Justin's with me on the Age of Calamity.
Yeah, dude, just walking up the battlefield in a mech suit. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yes, maybe you could even introduce Ultra Hand and some form of building into Hyrule Warriors. That could get crazy really fast, and I'm sure they could figure it out. But yeah, other than that, Portal 3 would be fantastic. It's a shame that's never happened. I would love. Sure. Halo Infinite deserves a sequel that I don't know if it's going to get, or campaign DLC that I don't know if it's going to get. But I don't know. It's tough because I feel like most of the franchises I love are in a great place. Ace Attorney's not. That deserves a sequel, but I think it's getting one. Yeah, so those are kind of my picks, but really Captain Toad is kind of the niche Nintendo one that I'd love to see get another shot because I adore that game. And Ace Attorney. Make Ace Attorney 7. Capcom, where is it? I'm waiting for it. It was in that leaked document like 4 years ago, and it still has not surfaced. So maybe someday. But that's our picks. Let us know yours. Email us toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com or find us on Twitter @ToadstoolBR. And that is the first episode of the Toadstool Boardroom for 2024 in the books. We're a weekly Nintendo show here on Thursdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're really looking forward to 2024. It should be a big year. Chris Shriver will hopefully be back with us next week if he's feeling better. You can find him online at Shrives93. Justin, where can people find you, and what are you working on so far in the new year?
You can find me on Twitter @KOREIS. I'm not working on anything in particular right now. Start of the year, it's usually a slow ramp up. Frankly, it's also a pretty tough time in the video game industry right now. And so check back in a few weeks. We'll see what projects come my way. But for now, I'm just kind of keeping my head low. Thoughts out to a lot of another huge batch of folks who are losing their jobs across multiple parts in the industry. But for now, I'm just focusing on the show, my normal Destiny racket, and just trying to set myself up for a good 2024.
I'm sure that you'll do a lot of awesome stuff in 2024, just like last year. You can find me on Twitter at LoganJPlant, and I think I'll shout out, check out Nintendo Voice Chat this week, because you might see somebody familiar in the hosting chair on Friday morning. So, yeah, go check that out. It should be a fun one. Yeah. But that's it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Toadstool Boardroom. Have a great week, and we'll catch you next time right back here for another episode of the Toadstool Boardroom.